Okay, we should be live about now. Welcome everybody. You're probably watching this posthumously. Well, posthumously, that might mean I'm dead, but I'm not. Anyway, as you can see here, this is Gavin Taylor from GT Dobro Lessons Online. We're going to run through, as the title says, some pentatonic scales in a major blues. This is really intended as a sort of primer for a variety of things regarding major pentatonics, and applying them maybe on the dobro, and how you, well, broadly how you, in theory, how you might apply them really basically over a simple major blues, and then how we might play them on the dobro. I've got some diagrams set up here. I'll just show you, run through the materials that we might be working with. We've got a chart with about 5 different variations on a blues. So we'll run through those individually. We've got some diagrams, some sheets to run through forms, a couple of different ones, a major scale with the triads on them, and then one with our pentatonics, and we'll talk through those and what they might mean. First of all, I'm just going to do a bit of playing, I think, just to start the stream off. So I'll just get you acquainted with the type of sound that I'm going to be working with. We're just going to be playing a very simple sort of slightly Cajun-y type of sound of blues, mostly because it's got a sort of a melodica on it. But here's the sound, and I shall let you watch me play. I'm going to play around and improvise, not necessarily as strict as the charts that I've written. But here it is. 2-bar intro. Okay, so you got a sort of idea of the sound of the backing track that we'll be working with there. So I shall start to move on to some of the materials that we're going to work with. So first of all, we're going to talk a little bit, just as a primer, about the numbers of how how you use numbers to describe scales if you haven't come across it. If you imagine the C major scale or any scale, it would be defined as a first note, a second note, third note, fourth note, fifth note, sixth note, and seventh note. The 8th note would be an octave. So we've got 7 individual elements in a normal scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And we can just give each one a number for that specific type of sound for a major scale. In a pentatonic scale, what we deal with is a 5-note system. So there are only 5 notes in the scale. So if I just swap to, first of all, I'm going to deal with this triads page. So I'll just cut to that. Whoops, that's not what I meant to cut to at all. I meant to cut to you. So I'll take the title down. Okay, what we can see here is a dobro, the scale throughout the fretboard. Okay, if you're not acquainted with that, that's okay. But what I want you to look at first of all is what I was just talking about was numbers. And some of you may be going, I don't really understand this numbers malarkey, and have some issues with that. Some of you may be fine with it. But what you can see on this top diagram, the one that says C Ionian modes, C Ionian scale mode shouldn't really be there because it's C major mode 1 is what it says later. So I've got all these numbers laid out, and you should be able to, wherever you find a 1, you'll be able to find a 2 above it, and then a 3 and a 4 and a 5 and a 6 and a 7. But I've highlighted certain numbers in red. Now they are the triads, the actual notes in our chords that we play. So when we play a chord, we get a 1, 3 and a 5. So what I've laid out here is the 3 chord types that we might be using for this one: C, F and G. Just managed to hit a couple of notes I didn't mean to hit on this web page. It takes them off. I'll just, what will I do? I shall put the 3 sharp. Okay, so you can see it down the bottom there. So if I carefully try and position this on the fretboard so you can see me playing at the same time, what you can see is that that big red 1 in the middle, that straight line. For most of you acquainted with using a slide of any description, you'll know that when we use a slide, it's a straight line. So other than what we call slants, playing chords across the strings like that is the easiest option. I'm just going to swap the cameras around here so that we can see that, and I'll put that one back on me. Okay, so what we can see there is down at this, sorry, the microphone's a bit off to the side like that, I should really put it the other way, but the Dobro gets picked up too much on that. So hopefully you can hear me when I'm turned away slightly like this. So here I've got my slide on the 5th fret, that's the 1 that you can see there. Now, you might come across the term around slide and Dobro above and below positions. So I'm starting here, and I'm starting on this 1, this root note. If I go above, I'm playing above that position. Here's my chord, straight across that line. If I choose to play the scale options above it, that's all above the slide. Whereas if I play them below, sorry, then that's all below the slide. Below the sort of starting point, or the kind of adjudicated kind of point that you're trying to delineate as a line. It's kind of simple when it's an open chord like this because it's a straight line. Okay, so some of the forms can be played in 2 ways, above and below. It's a bit similar to positions on the guitar. You can play things more than one way. Depending, if you start on a middle finger, you might be able to play some things below, and you might be able to play the same thing above, depending on the dexterity or the position that you're playing. So first of all, we can see this scale type. Sorry, I missed out the 7th there. I'll just do that slowly. Here I've got the 5th fret on that low G string. You should familiarise yourself with open G tuning. So I've got GBD, GBD. Notice there, I did kind of below, this 7th, below that 1 I played there. So I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So there's a combination of them. So there's kind of above and below the slide. I'm going to link these PDFs. Oh, I can't do that on Facebook, or maybe I can afterwards. I can do it on YouTube, but I'm not sure about here. So you can see a scale format there. Well, the first thing that we know about pentatonics is that there's 5 in them. There's 5 notes in them. So out of a major scale, what we do is we lose 2 notes. And for a major pentatonic, you're going to lose the 4th note and the 7th note. Okay? So I'm going to play the 2nd, 1, 2, and I'm going to play the 3rd, but I'm not going to worry about this 4th. I'm going to play the 5th, the 6th, miss out that 7th, and play the root again. Okay? So I get... I'll just play it in context, you can hear how it sits across the blues. I'll just play the scale. Okay, so that should be relatively clear to you in terms of numbers. So from a major scale, you lose the 4th note and you lose the 7th note. Okay, so if I just scroll down the page a second, what the next diagram that we can see here, it's got the dots in the same places, but the scale is starting from F. So it's a bit like an analogy would be perspective on a building. You've got a complex shape and you view it from different places on the street and it looks slightly different. Same object. The same thing is kind of like with modes if you haven't come across them. Okay, we've got our 7 notes, but if I start playing it from the 2nd note, it sounds different playing it from the 1st note. Something like this. I've got a different orientation on it. So now I'm going to be playing our F, the 4th mode. Because if you haven't come across much of the blues, you use chords 1, 4 and 5 broadly as the markers for it, for a very simple introduction to it. Okay, so here I'm going to play the same scale, the C major scale, starting from F. And you can see there that what was a 4th note, because it's the 4th degree of the scale F, is now our F, and it's 1. Okay, so the scale from F has got a slightly funny sound. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4. That funny sound there. Okay, so the scale's got a slightly different, like from this, to use the analogy, from this point of perspective looking at the building, looks a bit funny. That 4th sounds differently from 1, 2, 3, 4. If I start from F, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a raised 4th. So it's called a sharpened 4th in that. Okay? And then it's got a 5th and a 6th. A major 7th, or a 7, and a 1. So when we adapt that to make a pentatonic, we miss out the 4, that funny note, and we miss out our 7. So our pentatonic scale here would be... Okay, I'll just move on to the G, the next one. Okay, so I'm going to keep playing in the same part of the fretboard. This might seem complex to you initially. This is kind of an introduction to be able to play the parts that we're going to play later on, which is tabbed out, so it gives you the notes. But these diagrams will show you the scale positions for them. So this diagram is really mapping out the triads. So I'll swap to this one as we're now talking about the pentatonics, and I'll just confirm that what we're looking at here. So I'll leave that on the screen. This is the little text that I've got at the top of this chart, and it's just defining what I had said before. Pentatonic scales have 5 notes as opposed to 7 in a normal major scale. To make a major pentatonic scale, we use the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 6th of our major key. In the key of C, we have 3 possible major pentatonic positions. Okay, C pentatonic, F pentatonic, and G pentatonic, all with the same relationships. Below on this page, we'll see all 3 scales. The light blue notes, as we saw in the previous one, will be denoting notes that aren't used in the pentatonic scale. Previously, I only had the triads, the 3 notes, 1, 3, and 5 highlighted. Here, I'm going to have the whole pentatonic highlighted, but there'll be 2 blue notes that will be the notes that we're missing out. So here was that first scale. Just smallize it a little bit. Oops, don't want that. I want to go back where I was, please. Hopefully it will reload what we were. Until it is, we'll just continue here. So with G, because it's taking time to load. This is a site called Guitar Scientist, so you can make your own diagrams, which are very handy. But my clumsy thumbs managed to hit, well, the home symbol, I think. Anyway, carrying on. So in this case, my G major pentatonic starts here, it's actually the 5th from C. If I played from C, the first scale, if you can remember it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's where I'm starting here. Okay, so I'm just carrying on first of all up the same scale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm going to play behind the slide here. 5, 6, flat 7, 1. Now that 2 I could play back here or above. Well, you could do a variety of ways to play through it. If I strictly play below the slide, it's... Sorry, I messed that one up. Play it above. And I'm all the way up here before I have to go there, so sometimes you split that. That play I played 3 notes on the B string. So there's more than one way to move through this scale form. So the best advice is to get used to the triads like that you can see here on grouped together. So the first one, it would be the open strings. Okay, then 3, 5, 1. Then 5, 1, 3. Okay, those are our chord forms, and then you package the scale around it, and there's room for motion there. Yeah, we're back to our pentatonics here. So you can see there's my G. I'm going to go 1. Just minimize this a little bit if I can, just so you can see the 2 behind there. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if I just play the ones that are in red, I get 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. Okay, that could be played above, could be played in a variety of ways. But those are the kind of layouts that we're going to use. Okay, so if I just try and play each scale with the backing track just now, I'll do that. Let's get that 2-shot back. Or picture rather. Okay, so I'll just put that camera back onto my right hand so you can see the picking. That should be that one. Okay, and I'll start the backing track, and I'm just going to play through all 3 pentatonic scales and see if you can kind of notice, first of all, how this the same sound, just what we'd call modulating, starting from the same position, even though everything is still inside the key of C major. So there's a funny kind of architectural thing or structural thing of being able to play the same relationship of notes from 3 different places within inside a major key. So here's the backing track again. Okay. And again. That's me just playing the pentatonic scale up. Back to C. G. Let's do that one more time. Okay, so I'm just going to go through playing the major pentatonics over this again. We're just coming up to F, 6th fret on the B string. Back to C. G. Back to C. And again. G. Back to C. Okay, so what you heard there was obviously me just playing the major scale going up and down there. So, the major pentatonic on top of each chord. Okay, so our 12-bar form is the most simplest one that we can play here. If I just cut to the, oh, it's on the screen already. So what we can see there is first 4 bars are C. That last one in this one goes to 7. I'm not going to get into the complexity of sevenths in this video. The only seventh that's played mildly on the backing track is on that bar. It turns us nicely into the F chord. Okay, so we've got 4 bars of C, or what we call chord 1, because that's the key we're in, C major, so C is chord 1. Then we've got, I'm just going to get to the right place. We've got 2 bars of chord F, so chord 4, which is F. And then we're back to 2 bars of chord 1. Then to finish it off, we have 2 bars of G and 2 bars of C. Now, these last 4 bars are some of the places where you find most common variations. But notice here, there's nothing shorter than 2 bars in this particular blues. Okay, so 4 bars of C is the form, then 2 bars of F, 2 bars of C is the next 4-bar structure, then 2 bars of G, 2 bars of C. Okay, so that gives us 12 bars. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about this first bit of music we can see there. Hopefully you can make that out on the chart. I'm going to run through there's the dots there for if you're playing on a different instrument should you want to. So what we've got here is C, and the first thing is the root. Okay. Then I'm playing the second behind, not above, but behind. Okay. And then up to the third. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. And then it stops on the 5th. So I'm not even playing the 6th on this one. The rhythm wise, it's 1, 2, 3, and. So I'm not playing beat 1, I'm just counting it there. So it's 2, 3, and. 2, 3, and. Okay. I'll just cut to the picture-in-picture and put the chart up on that, so make it slightly bigger. That hopefully is that one. Yeah. And I'll press F11 on this little thing, that makes it a little bit better. And not that. So we should be able to see that relatively clearly there now. Can I zoom that in? Well, I won't zoom that in at this point. Yes, I will. Making sure you can all see it. Okay, so you should be able to see that there. So I'm just going to play. I'll play it first, so you get, and then I'll come back so you can see it on the instrument. But I'm just going to count you through these first 12 bars. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and. Next scale. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, and. Finally, G. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay. So, if I take that back down again, you should hear quite clearly there what was going on. I think that has to be on that, so that's in the right place. Okay, so we've got this 1, 2, 3, and a couple of elements of where the above and below issues that were, well, not issues, but practicalities I was talking about. The first one I'm playing below. I'm just going to chop the other camera so you can see my right hand as well. Root with my thumb on this hand. There's my second. Now I'm going thumb, index, thumb, middle. Now just talks about what we're dealing with here. So it's 1, 2, 3, and 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and. Okay. Then when it moves up to our F scale, remember we're using 1, 2, 3, 5 for this particular riff. Here's my F, 4th note of the C major scale. Okay. Same picking. Okay, back down to C. Okay, so everything was kind of in the above the slide there. There was nothing behind the slide. From the G line, it's above and below really. You can see that bar 9 at the right hand side of the page. There's my G, 5th fret on the D string. And I've gone to the A, the 2nd, on the same string. Back to B, which is the 3rd on the G string at the 3rd fret, below, if you like, because my position that I'm defining from the mire of complexity is this fret here. So I'm behind that point for the B, and I'm behind for the 5th. Yeah? That 7 that's written there, the A, could also be played as the 2nd fret on the G string. Okay, that would be entirely behind. Okay, so we'll just play that together again. Picture in picture. Okay, so we're just going to hear the blues again. I'll just put this on. I'm just going to go around that first riff a few times. Little variation there. Variation. Variation. Stand up. Some slide there. Same idea there. Little chromaticism. I'll stop and talk about these ideas. So what you should get there is that I started from this basic theme, tried to alliterate on it. It's roughly the same rhythm. So between my 2nd and my 3rd, I started putting a note in between it. 1, da, 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 da. We could call that chromaticism. For G, makes sense to play the A behind the 2nd note of that pentatonic scale behind, if I'm choosing to do between the 2nd and the 3rd, because they're here, and otherwise it's here to here, and I can't make quite the same slurs for it. But there's the first idea. Okay, so hopefully you've got a picture of that first. I'm just going to jump back to the main chart, and we'll talk about the next variation. So developing on a little bit more. Get rid of the title. So here's our variation 2. Okay, so this one is just using the major scale going up. Okay, we get C, D, E, G, A, C. Previously we just, and that's 2, 3, 4, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. And with the octave, that's 8. So 8 and 1 are the same. So I start on C, finish on C. Okay, so you'll notice there the cluster of notes. You know, you get 5 notes going up, and then there's an octave. That's the sound of an octave there. Okay, so I've got, it's coming in at the same point. I'm coming in on the and of, sorry, a different point here. Rather than the previous one came in on beat 2, 1, 2, 3, and. This one is coming in on the and of 1. So we've got to get and 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 and 2 and 3 and. So the rhythm is the same throughout. Okay, so if I just cut back to the picture in picture, I'll run through those ones there. Okay, so it's still just going through the same scale position. So I'll keep the music off the chart, off the page just now. So it's So I'm playing below and above there. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1. With the rhythm, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and. For F, it starts here. 1 and 2 and 3 and 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, then I'm going to start from G, which is here, the 5th fret on the D string, 1. Okay, then back to 1. Okay, so we'll go back to seeing a little bit. In fact, we won't. I'll just play it as we are just now. I'm going to play the backing track with our second riff. Okay, so this is going up through the whole scale, through the octave. So I'm playing 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and that's the rhythm. Okay, so 1, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Missed the 6th there. I'll just keep it standard just now. Changed again. Just try and keep it. No variations. One more time. Okay, so that was relatively self-explanatory. That's the riff as we played it. Remember, we're just using the major pentatonic scale here, not playing anything else, any other notes. When I started doing that, my mind immediately started wanting to doing variations, and I realised that wasn't appropriate with the riff because there wasn't going to be. I was going to head off piece too far. So I'll just do that once again with the chart up, so you can see all 12 bars. Okay, so you should be able to follow it through with this a bit more clearly. Okay, well, be able to see the paper, that is. You can see that above and the below. Here's my F all above. Above and below. Above and below. Variation. Okay. Back to that camera. So the next, we shall look at the next variation, which, if I just bring it up here, is the first one that descends down. So notice both of the ones that we've done so far have just been going up from the root. They've all started at the root. We'll move on to ones that don't start at the root. But in this case, we're going to start Oh, in fact, here, no, this one does, it starts at the root. I'll just bring it up onto the screen. Okay, so there's the third variation. And you can see it's descending down. Now the rhythm is the same. Well, very similar, in fact. I'm coming in on the and of 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So it's all consecutive eighths, i.e. there's no break in the rhythm. Previously we had and 2, and 3, and, i.e. we didn't play on beat 4. In this case, we've got beat 4, and it's all consecutive eighths from the beat 1 there. So we get just descending down our scale pattern, and here we've got it all above the slide. They're both on there. I should put that back on the Dobro. Yeah, we can see that one there. So in that instinct, we've got the 5th fret here. Sorry. So that's second, which other variations I've been playing it behind here. Like the last one. In this case, I've written it here. So that 2 is here, above the slide. So this is playing the descending C major pentatonic all above the slide. Okay, so the rhythm is 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and it finishes on the 3rd. So it goes down the scale, and then you can see it pop up back one note. Okay, finishes on the 3rd of the scale. 1, 2, 3. That's the note that it finishes on. And you'll find me sliding into that a lot. Okay, so onto our F scale. Remember, we're starting at the octave and finishing on the 3rd. Okay, for G, so I missed out the 6th. Okay, let's see how I transcribe that to the G. Sometimes I write things above, sometimes I write them below. And get rid of the wee blue dots. So here I've come back down for the 2nd above. Sometimes I like to keep the one motion of direction with my hand as I come down through things. Okay, so sometimes I do that. Once you get fluid with gesture, that can help with phrasing and things like that, as opposed to where you're changing the motion that your hand's moving, and you've got 2 notes on the same string, so there's a quality to that that is different when you go. Anyway, so that's the one that's going to be out. So the scale is going down, then back up to that 3rd. Okay, so let's hear that with the backing track. I shall leave it on the chart for just now. I'll make that all in the same page as we play along. In fact, if I do that right up the top there, then I might be able to bring in that lower 3rd. No, it crops it off, so we'll just leave it as it is. Okay, so we're just going to go around these 12 bars and see how that sounds. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, 3, 4, 1. And the F. Back to C. So I played the 4th there. Back to the 1. Here we go. So I'll just cut back to the shot, and I won't do that one. I shall do the picture-in-picture shot. and put the right hand back on and just see if there's any variations in the fingering that I'm doing. There's usually something odd that I'm conjuring up. Oh, it's 4 that I'm after. Okay, so just get that shot a bit more orientated. And save that one. Preset 4. Okay, so just going to run the same thing again. I'll just run it through with the before the backing track start, because you might feel some of this is too fast. Now, in terms of this right hand, general technique I can always suggest is make sure it's alternate. You don't want just thumb index for everything. Thumb index, thumb middle, thumb index, thumb middle. You can do double thumbs for things, but I'd refrain as best you can from any double fingers, like using the same finger twice. Okay? So as I'm coming down, I think I'm doing something like... sorry. Starting with the middle. Thumb, index, thumb, index, thumb. Finishing on the middle there. Okay, so sometimes I think it started one of those variations with the index finger, but as best as I can, I'm always doing something along those lines. Thumb, index, thumb, middle, or if I'm starting on a finger, followed by thumb, finger, thumb, you know, coming like that. You will get obviously other parts where it's 2 fingers in a row, or maybe two thumbs in a row, but it shouldn't be the same finger twice. Okay, so for the F, and for the G, C. Okay, with the backing track. 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 2, or 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm trying to hit the 4th there. Variation. Variation. Okay, so cracking on. We're going to move on to the 4th variation here. I'll just chop to that on the screen. So here we've got another one that comes in the same fashion. It comes in on the and of 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So our rhythm is the same. Okay, but this is the first one that we're not starting on the root note. For the C chord, we're not starting on C. For the F chord, we're not starting on F. We're always starting on the 3rd of the chord. Okay, in case there's any ambiguity about that, I'll just refresh our minds with these diagrams. Okay, so you can see the 1, 3, 5 for each chord. In this case, you can be starting in this middle part of the fretboard. You see my mouse wobbling around. In this case, I'll be starting with this 3, with that 3, or that 3. Okay, swap back. Oops, wrong button. Okay, now these riffs are ascending again, so we're going back up the scale. Okay, and if you look at the contour, it's going up and down, so it's not all just in one direction. We had this small inflection on the last one where it was descending down and then we jumped up for one note. This one is going up and down the scale a bit and then popping back up at the end. Okay, we're going to go up through the root, sorry, the 3rd, 5th, 6th root, so we're just carrying on up the scale from the 3rd. I'll put it on our 3 shot. keep doing that. It's the right one already. Okay, so you can see the fourth variation there. Okay, so I'm starting on the, here's the root, there's the third. Third, fifth, sixth. Okay, so that as you're seeing the fret numbers, it can be confusing with tab with numbers when we really want to be learning intervals, not just fret numbers. It's the third of the chord, the fifth of the chord, the sixth, up to the top. So there's our scale pattern going up. Then we're coming back down through the sixth and the fifth. And then we pop back up to the root. And 2 and 3 and 4 and 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, that's all played above. Let's take a look and see what happens with F. Starting on the third of the chord, here's the F chord here. Fifth root, third, fifth root, third. I'm starting on the third here, 7th fret on the D string. Okay. 3, 5, 6, octave, 6, 5, octave. Okay. Let's see what's happening for G. Is it above or below? It's all below by the looks of it. So here's the third. Okay, there's no second in this riff, and that was really the note that was variation. I was mostly playing the G behind. So there's the riff there. Third, fifth, sixth. Okay. Let's hear that with the music. One more time. Variation. 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 Okay, so on to our final one, fifth variation here. I'll just do as we have been, cut to the paper. Okay, so we're coming in the same place, this and of 1, and we've got consistent eighths to the end of the bar, but we've got a syncopation into the beginning of the next bar. Sorry, no, it's not consistent eighths. We can see that first note is a crotchet, so we're getting and 2 and 3 and. Okay, so we're not going to be playing on beats 2, and we're not going to be playing on the following beat 1. I don't think the previous riffs most of them we haven't been, but we're getting 1 and 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 3 4 1 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, I'll just orientate around this with the 3 shot, I think, because we'll be able to. Oh, keep doing that and just jump straight to it. We'll be able to sort of walk through it a bit more coherently there. Well, you can see it. Okay, so in this case, I'm starting on the 5th. The previous one started on the root. In this case, I'm starting on the 5th. There it is. Okay, 1 3 5 5 3 1. So I'm getting 1 and. Oh, other variation here that I'm doing is or not variation, but the thing that I'm deviating from the way that we were playing the scale before is that now I'm going to be able to. I'm using a couple of open strings in replacement for fretted ones. So the previous examples have all followed essential scale diagrams one way or the other to do it, whether it's above or below. And this, I suppose, is as well, but in this case, rather than fretting a note, I'm going to use open string. So if you look at the third note on this chart, what would be the second that I would usually play here or there is a D, so I'm just going to be playing the open D string. So I'm getting 1 and 3, 1 and 3, 4, 1. Okay, you can see the efficiency of motion there is very handy. You get lots of these sort of patterns where you're going to use open strings later on, but restricted it just to this one instance here, so I get excuse me. So in this case I'm going down to the root, but I need the 6 for the riff below it, so that's all the way down here, 2nd fret on that G string, so it's going to be quite a big fast motion here. 2, 3, 4. Just pay attention to this hand. I'm going to try and make sure I'm following my own teaching and making sure I'm using alternate fingers. I think I'm just using my thumb for those last notes. No index, thumb, finger. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so there's the riff for C. Typical, get a cough right on a live stream. Okay. Here is the riff for F. Just creeping onto the screen. I want to go, oh, it's because it's the last page. It won't slide down any further. What happens if I put it on this? Does that help? No, makes it worse. So in this instance, 5th of my F chord, the C here. There's the triad and the chord. So the 2nd of the scale is G, F, G. So I'm using the open G string there for that. Then I'm down to the root. The 6th in this case is the D, that would play here or back here maybe. Open D string. So very little motion. Really all I'm having to fret out is actually the triad, the 5th, the 3rd and the root. So 2, 3, 4, 1. And back to C, 4, 1. So there's those two. I'll just have to jump back to the main screen to get the final line, because I can't slide it up there. So if you look right down the bottom there, what we can see is our G part. I'm starting here. Well, I'll show you on the camera later, but no open strings, but all played behind our 5th fret. That 2nd could be played in a variety of ways. I'll just cut back to 2-shot or picture-in-picture. So that last phrase I'm playing here. Now technically there is a G that I could use. Notice my G string is very rattly. I run through G strings at a rate of knots. And essentially the wind starts to come apart at this point. It starts to just slightly unravel and tarnished because you're playing so much in G. And here I can feel it slipping around the string. I can roll it round the core of the string there. So it gets really, really rattly. I need to change it. Anyway, so the riff is all played behind here. Sorry. you could play that sixth, the second here. And you could use the open G string as well. Okay, so I'll play it with the backing track. I hit the root that time, I didn't mean to do that. So it's from the fifth. Missed the sixth below. And here we go again. Missed the sixth. Let's even get it this time. So I just got to get the F right. With the two open strings coming up on the F. Here we go. So, what am I doing wrong there? I want to come back to the root, and when I'm doing the F, I keep sliding back to the third. That's what I want to be doing. So, let's correct myself. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. Last one. Okay. So there you've had on camera a run through a variety of issues of using the pentatonic major scale over a really basic blues. Okay, so there's the examples that were there that were entirely all just using the three different major pentatonic scales in the key of C, C, F, and G. They've all got the same interval relationships. Okay, it's got a 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. Okay, for a major pentatonic. Okay, you miss out the fourth and the seventh, and it just so happens you get the same sound when you start on the first, the fourth, or the seventh degree of the C major scale, i.e. C, F, and G. You get exactly the same relationships. Okay, so you can get this echo of exactly the same, theme. As you'd want it, without any notes that drift outside the key. That's not always true with interval sets. Okay, so it's one of the very kind of, I wouldn't say symmetrical, but efficient systems that sit inside the major scale, the pentatonics, major pentatonics. Okay, we saw some that were just starting from the root. In fact, the first one didn't even go up to the sixth. It was just 1, 2, 3, 5, and then up through the octave, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 octave. The number for an octave is usually 8. Okay, so up and down those we had a variety of rhythms to work with, but there wasn't really any complexity beyond that. Okay, so you might find this useful on any other instrument to try and play on the piano, because they're quite a simple concept to orientate around there. It's in C, so it's all white keys. There's no complexity to that. So anytime you can play a C major scale somewhere, it's something that you could try and use to orientate around some of these riffs. Not all blues are going to have quite that major sound. They might have a lot more what we call dominant chords, more sevens in them. And that can make that kind of pentatonic sound a bit out of place. Because that backing track doesn't have a lot of sevens in it, there's just one of them, all that major pentatonic stuff works nicely over the top of it. You can see it's quite a cheerful blues. There's no grey clouds hanging around in any of it. That's the major pentatonic in that application. There's lots of ways you could use these things in funny ways that make them sound more dissonant or more resolved, depending on where you play them, in what context. But for today, I hope you found that a useful live stream or video, depending whether you're watching it posthumously. I keep saying posthumously as if I'm no longer. Hopefully you found that some useful information about using pentatonics on a basic blues there. If you've got any interest in learning more about music in any capacity, whether it's music theory, guitars, writing music, anything to do with music generally, do give me a shout. I'm more than happy to arrange a lesson with you, and we can take it from there. So you can see the email down below there for Dobro lessons, but if it's other things, you can just get in touch with me there. Until next time, I shall leave you with the thing that kept popping up on the screen before, which is my music tuition outro. Okay, cheerio, bye. Dead.